Great. Well, thanks so much for sitting down with me. I've just really enjoyed getting to know you on our Fund Development Committee, and I'm so excited for your new role as VP at Lennar. So I know you grew up in Tulsa in probably the 80s, right?
Yeah.
So tell me how that community helped shape you.
Yeah, so it was, yeah, you're right, Tulsa in the 80s. I guess I'm dating myself just a little bit. Early 80s, I'm, entering kind of early elementary school. And, the interesting thing that happened in Tulsa in that window, Tulsa was pretty heavily dependent upon the oil industry, energy. And so in that time frame, early 80s, crude oil obviously had a big hit, and so it negatively impacted the city as a whole. There are probably a lot of people here in Texas, Austin, that had similar effects in the 80s. And my family was no different. My father was actually a foreman at a oil refinery in the city, and he lost his job in the early 80s. I was young, elementary school age. And, one of the saving graces there is he had a relatively large family and a really strong support system. And so as a result of that, we all cling to each other. I have a ton of first cousins. He has, I think he's one of 7. Yeah, he's one of 7. And so that support system, you realize at a young age how critical your network, your community, your support system is, and helping you celebrate the victories and also get through the difficult times. So it's a big part of my upbringing. One of the other things that I've thought about a lot and is really interesting is my parents really had a strong focus on education. And I've asked my mother this probably 10 times over my adult life after I had kids. Neither one of them had college degrees. In fact, my generation was the first generation that actually had kids finish high school and go to college. And so really wanted to understand, what is it that you guys instilled that made college just like an assumption for me. I'm, 7, 8, 9 years old. Father is underemployed, and I had no doubt that I'd be going to college once I finished high school. And one of the things that really kind of pushed me along that path, I didn't live in a very diverse community, but I ended up going to a magnet high school. And one of the huge benefits of that is our high school is very racially diverse. And so I was exposed to people and thoughts that I would have never been exposed to if I had just gone to a traditional, call it neighborhood school, high school. And so as a result of that, it really kind of broadened my mind as to what was possible, potential things I could do as I move forward. And not only that, it helped me really understand how to navigate people that didn't necessarily think in the same way that I did for whatever reasons. And not that it would change all of my thoughts or my opinions, but it challenged me. It made me challenge myself on some of those thoughts and opinions, which was really, really good thing to pick up at a relatively young age, 13, 14, 15 years old. I made it to home building by pure happenstance. I have an undergrad degree, a bachelor's degree in accounting from Clark Atlanta University, and so moved to Dallas because I wanted to be a little closer to my family. By and large, most of my family exists within that 250-mile drive between Tulsa and Dallas-Fort Worth. So it was a really good place to be. I'd be a lot closer to family, and I started working for telecom companies doing accounting, finance work, and I did that for about 6 years or so, and the timing was perfect. I was just finishing up my master's at University of Texas at Dallas, and so I can't remember the month, but I finished my master's degree. The next month I started working for KB Home as a land acquisition analyst, and just kind of got in there by happenstance, but off and running at that point because it was really something I was interested in. It's tangible. Homes, communities, you can drive. For instance, I would drive my parents when they would come to visit through different communities that we were working on because this is tangible. It's something you can be proud of. We're doing work as opposed to what the telecom work seemed really abstract to me. I couldn't really see it, touch it, feel it in the same manner. I'm a big sports fan. In particular, I really like basketball, right? So I grew up, as you mentioned, in the 80s, and Urban Magic Johnson was absolutely my favorite athlete of all time. But I don't admire him because of his basketball career, although I'm super jealous because of how good he was. what I really admire him for is his second act. He struggled after retirement, trying to figure out and find his place. And ultimately, where he found himself to be successful is in offering service to others. And the thing that attracts that to me is it was done through real estate development. He began serving underserved communities with Starbucks and with movie theaters, things that your typical developers would never think would flourish in South Central Los Angeles and Southwest Atlanta. I mean, you can pick other cities. He began to offer services that no one ever thought to offer there. And it proved that there is not only a market there, but there's an eager market there for these people to not have to, go outside of their comfortable community in order to receive those services. And that struck home with me for a couple reasons. For one, again, I'm interested in real estate, but two, I'm from one of those underserved communities. And so to realize that you're not simply invisible to the corporate world, that there are people out there that see value and understand that they can serve you and provide services to you, I think it was just a tremendous piece for me. And I think the other person would be my father. You know, through his faith and hard work, he decided to step out on his own and start his own heating and air company as I was going into high school. And so it was just truly, to me, even now, it's inspirational. I call him and ask him, you know, every now and again, hey, what did it take? What were you thinking when you said, look, I'm just going to jump out here and do this myself instead of going to look to find a job and work for someone else? Yeah, it's funny. My parents are boomers, and I've had conversations. They still live in the house that we moved to that house when I was 3 years old, and my brother was born, and his first day he came home to that house, and so they've been in that house for over 40 years at this point, and it's really interesting. I've talked to them on numerous occasions about, hey, why don't you guys downsize and do something else? But it's unfathomable for them. Why would they leave their house, their home? And that's literally how my mother refers to it. This is my home. Why
it was
would
part of your DNA almost.
Right, exactly. It's all intertwined there. And I get it. We come home and we visit and we create new memories in the same home to add on to the memories that have been built up over time. So your point is a really interesting point. That's exactly right. They become part of that fabric of their DNA, and it's their home. They're not leaving. My wife and I bought a home in North Dallas, and the home, I can't remember when it was built, maybe 1970 or something along those lines, but the gentleman that sold it to us actually was the original owner in that home and raised his family. His wife passed, and all of this happens in that, whatever it was, 35 years he was in that home. And so this is a long time ago. We actually went to the closing, and he was there and we were there. We were signing the docs in the same room together. I don't think anybody does that anymore. Yeah. And as he's signing, he actually starts to tear up a bit, right? And I absolutely get it. Like, wow, he's been here for a long time. He's lived half of his life or thereabouts here. But then I look to my right, and my wife is tearing up as well because she sees him and she understands some of the memories we had an opportunity to chat with him a little bit. And you see, to your exact point, how personal and how impactful homes can be, because they become a staple of your life. So many good memories go along with your home. You bring your baby home for the first time and you sit them in this crib, in their room, in this house. You put notches on the wall to track height. I mean, so much of what you do is attached to that home. You put a basketball goal up in the backyard, and your kid learns his first interaction with the sport that he fall in love with is basketball in his backyard. So much of that is tied to your place of residence. It's not a house. Ultimately, it is truly a home. I got in and I realized very quickly why this was important to me, why I liked it. And it didn't take long. I think I was working for KB Home, and one of the things they would have us do as entry-level folks, particularly land acquisition, is they wanted us to have opportunities to interface with customers. We weren't on the sales team, so we didn't really interface with customers. We're very much on the front end of the process. But we were able to interface maybe at the design center and things of that nature. And what you quickly realize is we don't just sell widgets. We're not selling cell phones phones or oranges or things of that nature. We're selling homes, and homes are very personal to people. And you could see the emotion that goes into that process for many people. And I step back to think about it, and if you think, ultimately, home builders deliver the American dream, or a big aspect of the American dream, right? The house, the picket fence, it's all part of that.
All packaged in.
It's
Yeah.
all packaged in
Yeah.
together. I think one of the things that's happening right now, in Austin's, I think, is a good example. We're HomeAid, and one of the things we're focused on is homelessness. I think there's a big piece of education that has to go along with homelessness. I think people think homeless, they think of the person that is panhandling at a random intersection that they run into at any given point. But I don't know that people really understand the vast population and different scenarios or situations that lead to people becoming homeless. You got women and children that are in abusive situations, and they need some stop point as they're trying to restart or reset their life. And so I think a big part of it is, for home building, is to understand what are the different challenges around people that are homeless. And then it's not simply an affordability issue. It is an affordability issue in some instances, and so we need to understand, how do we deliver product that fits different life situations so that they can, so that buyers can get in homes and own homes. But on the flip side, and I think this is what is so attractive to me about HomeAid, is HomeAid goes after a larger section of the homeless issue, which is transitional, and how we help get people on their feet to move forward. And so I think being involved in HomeAid and helping HomeAid grow and getting the message out with HomeAid is tremendously important, which is why I frankly sought the organization out once I was exposed to it in California and moved to Austin. My wife was involved in an organization where there's a huge homeless population that comes from people that live in group homes, kids, teenagers that live in group homes, and as they age out, there's nowhere for them to go. And those aren't populations that people think about readily or talk about, or people that, you've got women and children that are in abusive situations, and they need some stop point as they're trying to restart or reset their life. And so I think a big part of it is, for home building, is to understand what are the different challenges around people that are homeless. And then it's not simply an affordability issue. It is an affordability issue in some instances, and so we need to understand, how do we deliver product that fits different life situations so that they can, so that buyers can get in homes and own homes. But on the flip side, and I think this is what is so attractive to me about HomeAid, is HomeAid goes after a larger section of the homeless issue, which is transitional, and how we help get people on their feet to move forward. And so I think being involved in HomeAid and helping HomeAid grow and getting the message out with HomeAid is tremendously important, which is why I frankly sought the organization out once I was exposed to it in California and moved to Austin. The most interesting piece you realize is, it's not an us and a them. Once you get to know people that you wouldn't normally interact with on a day-to-day basis, you realize, by and large, we want 90%, 85, 90% of the same things. People are people. But it's hard to understand that and get to know that unless you experience stepping outside of, as you said, your comfort zone, and interacting with folks that may not think the same way as you, or have similar life experiences as you. So you would think you would want to understand, have people that understand that buying decision and the perspective that comes from that decision be major influences in the organization.
Absolutely.
And that's the whole point of diversity at the end of the day, is you gotta understand your market, your clientele is diverse, so you want the internal operations and the internal strategy makers within your organization to be diverse as well, so that you're not missing, you're capturing, the thoughts and the makeup of your clientele. Particularly here in Austin, I mean, there's a lot in the news about homelessness and how we're approaching and addressing homelessness. There's a solution that builders can be a part of, and I think a huge part of that is addressing affordability. But that's not simply a builder solve. There has to be a collective effort there to solve that problem.
It's a community issue.
It's a community issue. I think builders have a major role to play in that, in helping to provide the shelter, what form that takes. Obviously, has some flexibility there, but builders have a critical role in addressing that.